You're listening to World War II, Above and Below. Hello everybody and welcome to World War II, Above and Below. Well, about a year ago, when we were calling ourselves the Air War Podcast, I released an episode talking about the 78th Fighter Group and a project I was working on to tell the stories from that unit. A link to that podcast can be found in the description of whichever platform you are listening to this on. And my apologies for that delay, but I have a feeling this will be worth the wait for our subscribers who enjoy studying the mighty 8th Air Force. Episodes about the 78th Fighter Group will be released on the first Friday of every month, just like our regular podcast episodes. So, without further ado, here we go. World War II Above and Below presents stories of the 78th Fighter Group. Episode 1, Introduction. About a month ago from the time of writing this script, I posted some 8th Air Force gun camera reels on Reddit and got into a nice discussion about favorite air units. When I said the 78th Fighter Group, this Reddit user politely asked why. I thought this would be an effective way to introduce this series. The 78th isn't the only fighter unit, nor the only aviation outfit overlooked in the air war. There are plenty of other allied groups and squadrons whose stories are just as worthy of telling. Because the 78th is of special interest to me, I have sought them out and dedicated part of my studies to telling their history. Luckily, I find myself doing this in an era of media where a product can be easily distributed to the masses via platforms like YouTube and Spotify. My hope is that people with a similar interest to mine will do the same for other subtopics of the Second World War. Okay, so back to the question, why the 78th Fighter Group? Within the vast structure of the 8th Air Force is the 8th Fighter Command, the fighter aircraft contingent of the mighty 8th. By the time the 8th flew its last combat mission in April 1945, it had 15 fighter groups. Each fighter group was made of 3 squadrons with 12 to 16 aircraft per squadron. So, do the math, a group typically put up no less than 36 aircraft on a combat mission, and upwards of 48. Multiply that by 15 and you have at least 500 fighter planes in the air. This is what the 8th Fighter Command could field at maximum strength in the spring of 1945, and truth be told, they were doing so in the months prior during the latter half of 1944. Of course, that is only counting fighter aircraft. There were 40 bomb groups in the 8th Air Force. It was not an uncommon sight to put up more than 1,200 planes in the air for a mission. Now for just a moment, let's rewind to April 1943. The 8th Fighter Command arrives in England to take on the Luftwaffe with just 3 fighter groups. Their unit designations are the 4th, 56th, and 78th. Of those 3, 2 of whom are often written about in the skies over Western Europe. The 4th and 56th fighter groups found their way into the headlines regularly. Even pilots from each outfit only needed to be recognized by surnames. These men shot down Nazi fighters in droves, as both groups competed throughout the air war for the top-scoring fighter group in the 8th Air Force.
There are remembered names in the mess halls. Major Gerald Johnson, a crack shot. Major Goodson, gallant fighter. Major Dwayne Beeson, great tactician. Captain Eugene O'Neill, one of the best. Major Don Gentili ran up a flaming record. Colonel Don Blakesley, great leader of 4th Group. Major Walker Mahurin, one of the first and best of the great aces. Major Bob Johnson and all his victories. Lieutenant Colonel Gabreski, with a great career. And Colonel Hubert Zemke, famous commander of 56.
While the air war progressed in 1943, the 8th Fighter Command expanded and saw several groups run up their scores at rapid pace. The 352nd, 355th, and 357th fighter groups each claimed more enemy aircraft destroyed than the 78th despite arriving months later. Even though more groups arrived and bypassed the 78th on the scoreboard, they were only one of 3 outfits who could say they battled the Luftwaffe for 2 consecutive years. In those 2 years, from April 1943 to April 1945, are moments that compelled me enough to sink my teeth into telling their stories. One of the reoccurring themes in studying military history is that units can find themselves jinxed. In the lexicon of World War II, they were usually self-proclaimed a hard luck outfit. For any type or any number of reasons, the 78th had absolutely no shortage of situations that cannot be deemed anything else other than hard luck, or so it would seem. I will save these stories of hard luck for its own episode, though. I think it is safe to say that these aforementioned elements are what keep the 78th from getting more notoriety in the historical record. Maybe if the 78th fielded more aces, had a higher overall claim of enemy aircraft, and maybe had better luck, I'd be doing a series about another outfit who checked all three of those boxes. In the end, those things are irrelevant because these men did more than their part in defeating the Luftwaffe. For this podcast, I will be talking about various missions, pilots, and events. I'm sorry to say that it will not be a chronological telling from beginning to end, much like Band of Brothers. If you're after that, please take a look at the description for books on the 78th Fighter Group's complete history, as they do a far better job than I ever would. This podcast is to examine the conditions and process carried out by these men who flew the P-47 Thunderbolt and P-51 Mustang into combat for over 2 years in the skies over Western Europe. Tune in next month on Friday, May 2nd for Episode 2. Thunderbolts to Mustangs. You've been listening to World War II Above and Below. Thank you for tuning in, and be sure to check us out on YouTube, Spotify, and Instagram. See you next time.